Tyrone Tracy Jr., Najee Harris, and Jalen McMillan are among the biggest veteran losers following the 2025 NFL Draft. We discuss why and hit on others whose value has taken a dip on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
This episode is brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Turn any TV into your Xbox, no console needed. Head to amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to learn more. Today, we are going to discuss the biggest losers coming out of the 2025 NFL Draft. Only veterans we're talking about. We've already hit on all the rookies and their landing spots. And yesterday's episode, we talked about the biggest winners that gained the most value after the NFL Draft. So if you missed that, go listen to it. But we're going to start with a few running backs here who lost some value following the draft. And the top guy that lost value was Tyrone Tracy Jr., in my opinion. It could be Tyrone Tracy Jr. or Najee Harris. They both lost a lot of value. But with Tyrone Tracy Jr., he was a fourth-round pick last year. He did okay, right? Like, he had a solid rookie season when he got the chance. But it was really a few games in the middle of the season. He did fall off in the second half of the year when he was still getting opportunities. From weeks 12 through 18, he was averaging just 3.5 yards per carry. I do think the production fell off. I don't think that the Giants felt good about going in with him as the lead back. And then they go draft Cam Skattebo. Yeah, it wasn't until the fourth round, but it was early fourth round. And maybe I'm just too high on Cam Skattebo, but I think he's a really, really, really good. And he could be a power runner. He can be a great pass catcher too. I know that's where Tracy also shines, but I think Skattebo ends up taking Tracy's job sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I think they're going to need both of these guys on the field. We've seen committees before that have tried to develop in the Brian Daboll offense, going back to Buffalo, trying to fit in Devin Singletary and Zach Moss and trying to get their roles there. And I think Skattebo is going to be very valuable. I think he does a lot of things that Tyrone Tracy can't do, hold up as a power back. But Tracy, we know, he's a converted to wide receiver and switched Big Ten schools. In the end, he's a pretty good running back. And I think they needed more options. I think they were just kind of disappointed. Devin Singletary really didn't do much. He couldn't stay on the field or healthy, so they needed to complement him. So I don't see a lead role available here. And I think if Tyrone Tracy was alone, you'd feel him over Singletary quite a bit here to take the majority of the touches. Now, Skattebo, I don't think they want to overexpose him as a rookie. And he does all the little things well where he can stay on the field, but so does Tracy. And he really impressed them last year. So I think this team just wanted more offensive weapons in general, right? And Skattebo gives them another weapon. And look, this is all of a sudden a team that is interesting, right? You have three quarterbacks that have changed this room, and Jackson Dart in the draft, and Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. You bring back Darius Slayton. So this looks like a legit offense here with Malik Neighbors more so. So what we want is just more opportunities. Now, do we think it might line up to be that Skattebo gets the early down work and Tracy gets more of the receiving work and then Skattebo scores a little bit more? Absolutely, could develop into that situation. But I'm not sure exactly the split because I know they're still quite high on Tracy. I just think they just needed other guys as well to make plays for this team. They just were short on that. So we'll see how this develops, but it's not good for Tracy's value at all. Like, he was looking clear for a very good role, where now it's a bit of a split and maybe a flex situation for either guy.
Yeah, and this next guy, Najee Harris, he could have been definitely listed as our biggest loser. It's pretty much a tie here, but maybe Harris even wins because going into the draft, it looked like it was going to be hard to keep Najee Harris out of the top 15 running back rankings, right? Because he was the only viable running back for the Chargers. It looked like he was going to get a massive workload, and he's had a massive workload with the Steelers, but we're saying in a better offense with a better system, better quarterback, more scoring opportunities, that he could really shine with the Chargers. But then the Chargers end up using their first round pick, 22nd overall, on Omarion Hampton, who is the second best running back in this class. And now all of a sudden, this backfield gets very confusing. We know, like, you don't draft a first-round running back to give Najee Harris 300 touches. That's just not going to happen. And if Najee was barely good for fantasy, even with his 300 touches with the Steelers, now if they're splitting a backfield, I don't see great things unless they give Najee Harris all the goal line carries. But it's not like Omarion Hampton's a small back, so he should be getting those opportunities too. And they only signed Najee to a 1 year, $5.3 million contract, right? So it's not like they're going to have any incentive to really give Najee Harris all these touches. They want to see what they got out of their guy that they spent a first round pick on. So I think Najee Harris went from a top 15 running back in our rankings to, in the 30s. So that's a massive drop for him.
Yeah, don't forget, in a weird twist, they've done a weird thing with J.K. Dobbins with an unrestricted free agent tender. So if he signs anywhere, he would be negotiating with the Chargers to return. So that would complicate things even more here. Yeah. Why they're looking at Dobbins, I have no idea. When you've invested in Harris and drafted Hampton, why do you need him back? Is Najee Harris, let's get down to the question, is he going to be a glorified version of Gus Edwards, what Gus Edwards was last year, the power back that comes in and cleans up? Hampton is just too talented to sit here. He's not going to come in as a backup. I have no interest now in drafting Harris. Like before I was, I can buy it as an RB2 if he's taking over that Dobbins and role that Edwards had, but now you're like, what role is he going to have? Like, we're not sure. Like, Hampton is a complete 3-down back. So Najee Harris is a straight up early down backup. Does he come in, like, rotate every 3 series? He's the back. I don't know. I know the Chargers want some high volume, but at the same time, I think they want to open up their passing game with Justin Herbert, adding Trey Harris to the mix with Ladd McConkey. So I'm not sure the rushing volume is going to be like Baltimore Ravens like, right? And part of the Baltimore Ravens rushing percentage comes from Lamar Jackson. Like that kind of skews it with his run plays where Justin Herbert doesn't take off and run as much. So I don't know if there's going to be enough carries and touches in general to go around for these guys. So I have no interest in drafting Harris at this point. I'm an upside guy. I'm going Hampton all the way. And if Harris goes ahead of Hampton, I think that's ridiculous. You just have to look. First round draft capital on a running back outweighs 1 year, $8 to $9 million. It just does. And so I think they're happy about the 1-2 punch they have, and they're going to be very effective beyond that offensive line. But I don't know if Harris is going to get enough. But I think the one thing you get is a clear get Hampton and Harris, and you're going to be set with this Chargers backfield and the production you're going to get in fantasy. So that's how I would do it. But I would definitely look to, if I didn't get Harris, I would definitely want Hampton.
The upside, if you're looking for a example of upside, it would be like the Lions, right? When they had David Montgomery, they drafted Jahmyr Gibbs early, and David Montgomery still held fantasy value, right? But they have to be a great running team like the Lions, where they're running all the time, and they have to be scoring touchdowns nonstop as all the running backs getting touchdowns. It's a hard thing to copy, but maybe that's their formula. And then the last running back here to lose a lot of value, but also we were kind of already on our last chance with him anyways. When we did our last chance episode, he was listed. Rhamondre Stevenson, we're going to give him one last chance because, the Patriots are working on fixing up their offense, and they got Josh McDaniels. Well, now they spent their early second-round pick on TreVeyon Henderson out of Ohio State. And, it's been quite a while since we've seen Stevenson be a good fantasy back. It was 2022, and he was a running back 11 overall, running back 14 on average. But since then, in 2023, running back 31, 2024, running back 29 in points per game. So it's been a long time, and now Stevenson's not going to only have to split the backfield with Antonio Gibson, but also TreVeyon Henderson, who is a talented back. So Stevenson is probably going to be off my draft board because I'm not too excited about the Patriots offense in general, that I'm not doing this with a 3-headed monster backfield.
Yeah, I think Henderson has a clear path to some significant touches here because, again, I think you're right. They were looking at Stevenson. They paid him. I think they're disappointed that he has not come through, stayed as durable as they would like. They want him to take over a little bit. Partly it's not his own fault because this offensive line hasn't been all that good of late, and they finally got a rock there at left tackle in Will Campbell. So, but you think with Campbell and then going to Henderson, then later getting Kyle Williams, that this team was really focused on boosting Drake May in this offense. So if they're going to use high draft pick on a player of Henderson's talent, I think they're going to use him and put him to work here. And Henderson is more of a natural receiving kind of explosive guy than his former teammate Quinshon Judkins. He can also finish drives as well. So it could end up being Stevenson being the guy that you see get some touchdown opportunities, but it kind of gets split with Henderson, while Henderson is on the field more for those third down situations. So it's very confusing because I think there's some interchangeability between these two in terms of their usage. So not exactly how it's going to go here. So Stevens can easily end up being a backup. Henderson could be the change of pace. Henderson could take over the backfield altogether. There's so many, quote, wide range of outcomes with this backfield that it might be a stay away one. Where I think the Chargers, I think there's room potentially because of how good they could be with Harris and Hampton. But this one, is going to be capped, right? Because it's the Patriots and still an offense in progress with Drake May.
We had a handful of wide receivers lose a decent amount of value following the draft, a couple quarterbacks and one tight end in particular that lost a lot of value. We will discuss that right after a quick break. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. It's the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. You get a panorama view of your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. You can buy tickets in a matter of seconds, 2 taps, and you're set. And they have the best ticket coverage in the business in case anything goes wrong. They have event cancellation protection, 24-hour return guarantee, and even job loss assurance. You get to take the guessing work and the worries out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we hit on the running backs that lost the most value out of the draft. Now it's time for the wide receivers. And our poor boy, Jalen McMillan from the Buccaneers. A really great end of his rookie season. We were excited to see what he could be in his second year, especially right after the season when we didn't know if they were going to have Chris Godwin back, right? We thought maybe it would just be Mike Evans and McMillan. Well, they brought back Chris Godwin, and then they drafted Egbuka in the first round. Emeka Egbuka is a very, very talented wide receiver, and I can't imagine that they're going to be letting McMillan on the field over him. So right now, McMillan's sitting there as the wide receiver 4 on this team. And we know Baker likes to also target Cade Otton, their tight end, and also Bucky Irvin and Rashad White and Sean Tucker, right? Like he kind of spreads it to all of these guys. And that's really, really unfortunate for McMillan, who saw his role increase a lot when he was needed last year at the end of the year. But now I think he's going to go back onto the shelf of not being very fantasy relevant.
Yeah, let's not sit here and that we don't want to have the doubts that Jalen McMillan is going to be another Brashad Perriman, that short guy that came in as the third, stepped up, and then he disappeared from fantasy view. I mean, he was a much older receiver, we know that, and he was a kind of a fill-in at that stage of his career. What I look at Egbuka and McMillan, this is definitely the future of this receiving core. They're going to be the starters at some point and be the prominent target eaters in this offense. But in 2025, that's different because McMillan went from a potential number 2 with Mike Evans, and everything just fell apart. Like wasn't sure they were going to re-sign Godwin. He was rumored to go to the Patriots and other teams. Well, they kind of surprised me doing that. And then they really shocked me by going and getting Egbuka. So this is a crowd. They do like the passing game. They like throwing downfield with Baker Mayfield. So look, McMillan, I'm not even sure Egbuka is going to have a big role right now because of just having these reliable targets. Now, the one good positive thing that we're going to take away is that Baker Mayfield did have some really good chemistry with Jalen McMillan, so maybe that takes a while for Egbuka to get on the same page. But again, there's one ball to go around, and Evans and Godwin were rolling when they were healthy as the main guys of this offense. This little sprinkle of Cade Otton, then they had the third receiver emerge, and he kind of took over, and then Godwin got hurt. So it's in flux here. Again, it's not Liam Cohen anymore, but they promoted within. So a lot of the same offensive style will be there. So right now, McMillan, table him. I think he'll come back to prominence. I think one of these guys is probably going to be done soon, Godwin or Evans, and then we'll have these two as the future of the Bucs. So maybe just a situation where, look, McMillan and Egbuka, they're used to having great receivers here for a long time and guys that they've trusted for a long time. So I think it's like, here's a way to pass the torch, good mentorship way with Evans. 2026, 2027, that's where you're going to be more interested in both of these guys.
Now, another whole group of wide receivers that got hurt were the Packers wide receivers. And it doesn't matter what Matt LaFleur says. He said he's comfortable with his wide receivers. That's what he said before the draft. He likes, what he had. Well, then they spent their first round pick and third round pick on a wide receiver, right? So actions speak louder than words. And with Christian Watson, he tears his ACL in the playoffs last year or week 18. I don't remember which one it was, but he's not likely to be ready anytime soon to start the season. And they drafted Matthew Golden in the first round, who's a super fast guy. And it seems like he's there to finally be that replacement for Christian Watson, who just has not worked out his career since they've drafted him. And then Jaden Reed, his season started on fire last year, ended up very disappointing the second half of the season. And it's not to say that their third round pick in Xavier Williams is just going to steal his job, but they do play very similar roles. And Williams is just a little bit bigger than Jaden Reed, I guess, but they play that similar gadget role. I just think all of a sudden the pool is even muddier. They already had, we're spreading the ball around. They add two more wide receivers. Jaden Reed was already losing playing time in the second half of last year. So I think this brings on both Jaden Reed and then also the opportunity for Christian Watson to come back from the ACL tear and do anything. It was already so low, but now with Matthew Golden there, it's just like minimal.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'll start with your point you made on Williams. Yeah, they could have similar touches where they cross over, and Reed was boosted a lot by his role as a rusher at times, right? He was used as a poor man's Deebo Samuel a lot for this Packers offense. So some of those gadget plays now could go to Williams, or maybe they're just doing this to put these guys all on alert. But look, Watson, the number one ability, he's got oodles of talent, but the number one ability is availability. He has not been available. Romeo Doubs has had his share of injuries here. Dontavian Wicks has been in and out of the lineup. So you just can't trust any of these guys. And you have Jordan Love, and you paid Jordan Love. So you got to get him some help here because, again, he is an arm talent that can get the ball downfield. But if you don't have receivers that are going to be reliable and healthy for him, it's really hard to execute that. So I think Golden can really help clean this up. I think there's still a key role for Reed here in this offense because I think he's the best kind of pure slot option of these guys that can line up and catch balls. I think Doubs and Watson, that's not their game. And Wicks has also been basically a sub for whenever Watson and Doubs have not been in the lineup. So this is really looking good for Golden. I think Reed is going to be okay, but I'm not going to go look at him like I think he starts at a wide receiver 4, and we're going to go from there. But Golden, the opportunity doesn't get any better than this. And I think they wanted to clean this up. When the Packers use a very rare first-round pick on a wide receiver, last time was Javon Walker, they're sick and tired of some things that were not working at this position. Maybe they shouldn't have moved on from Devontae Adams. Maybe looking back at that, they would have had that number 1, had the number 2 now. But I expect Golden to be prominent sooner rather than later. And again, it might be a situation to avoid, but if I'm going to go after anyone, I'd say Golden is a potential wide receiver 4 with upside, and Reed just as wide receiver 4 by default almost that you want to add to your team for depth.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for that whole group. Another just a group I might be staying away from overall.
Yeah, I would.
And then last, Jacoby Myers. It's not like he lost a ton of value because he wasn't going really high in drafts, but he was like a good sleeper guy to keep an eye on because the Raiders wide receiver room is barren, right? It's him, and then the competition was Trey Tucker or DJ Turner, like really nobody. So Jacoby Myers was going to be the clear second target in this offense behind Brock Bowers. And now we don't know if that's the case. It looks like, they took Jack Besh with the second round pick. He's a very good wide receiver coming out of school. I will not be shocked if by the middle of the year, he's the guy that's leading this wide receiver room in targets. So Myers was already kind of on the fence with, is this a guy I want to take or not? And now it just pushes him down a little bit more.
Yeah, I think you look at him as a wide receiver 3, 4 borderline, anywhere from 36 to 42, 45 in there, where I think he would have been firmly maybe like 28 through 36, maybe. So there's not a major, like, we're bummed out about this, but it is a person out of the equation. Another thing you have to remember, the Raiders' pass attempts are going to go down quite a bit because of Pete Carroll. He wants to run the ball. They want to be a running team. They've got the offensive line to do it. And also, Geno Smith is resetting kind of the chemistry, right? So it's basically a clean slate for him with Bowers and Myers and Besh. He's going to have to connect with one of these guys, right? Coming in. And we know that he had a really good connection with Jackson Smith and Najigba over the veterans there in Seattle the last couple of years. So maybe he favors the young guys. That might help Bowers and Besh here. And when you look at Myers, again, he's got to develop that chemistry right away with Geno. I don't know how it's been going so far for them working together, but that's something that's a little bit underrated, right? When you have some established thing between a quarterback and receiver and that breaks up, you got to find new guys. So pay attention to that closely to see how Smith is getting along with those new receivers. But I would bet Besh just gives them a little bit more upside on the outside. And that's why I think it's going to hurt Jacoby Myers.
Yeah, absolutely. Now we have 2 quarterbacks that did not thrive after this draft. That's all we should say. I don't know how much they were hurt, but they definitely didn't increase value, and they're already getting lower in our rankings. And then one tight end we were excited about, and now our hopes and dreams are dead, and that's Cole Kmet. We will get to that right after a quick break.
Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console is required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows and movies. It's great. What if you could jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every room? How do you game when you're not in front of your main setup? Really, this makes it a lot easy. If you already have a console, it is also easy for you. A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel, allowing you to take your fun with your kids and games wherever you can plug in. Check it out. This is the Xbox games you can try without the big upfront investment in the console and really get in on the action in a whole new way. Again, you don't have to flip through apps and all that. You know where everything is on your Fire TV Stick 4K, your other apps, Netflix, YouTube, and of course, toggling to your Xbox game. So it's a lot of fun here to play, and it's now a lot more convenient for you. Just head to Amazon.com/FireTV Lockdown to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatibility controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. Check those out right now and get your gaming on with Amazon Fire TV today. All right, Michelle, time to close the show. And there are some losers that either didn't get the help they needed or they got competition they didn't want. That's basically what we're talking about in all these situations. And let's go to Kyler Murray. He might be flying under the radar. He hasn't really talked about much at all really this offseason, but it's not good, right? He needs to get on the page with Marvin Harrison Jr. I thought they were going to go look for a complimentary target, but basically it's Harrison and Trey McBride. The offense is the same. It's like nothing is all that exciting or buzzy with Kyler Murray, especially if he's not willing to run more this season.
Yeah, I mean, nothing has changed, and that's the issue, right? Because last year he was quarterback 10 overall, quarterback 12 on average. It wasn't the worst year ever, but it was just such an inconsistent year. He had 7 games with over 20 fantasy points. That's great. I mean, that's really good. That's one less such game than Jalen Hurts or Joe Burrow. It's just the other games where he wasn't scoring those 20 points. It was just abysmal. Like so many terrible games in there. It was just a roller coaster of a season. And they kept the same OC that was already a bad start to the offseason. They didn't really fix up the offensive line, like whatever pieces they needed to. And then they didn't add any weapons for Kyler Murray. And Marvin Harrison Jr. and Trey McBride should be enough. I'm not saying it's not. They need Marvin Harrison Jr. to step it up, but what's going to change when it's the same system? I don't know. So he's been a big loser this offseason, and then them just not adding any skilled players for Kyler is not great either. And then with Dak Prescott too, it's kind of the same situation. They hire Brian Schottenheimer, which is less than inspiring, right? They don't get help in the run game for Dak to put any pressure on the defense to scare them from the run, right? And then they don't even add any weapons for Dak Prescott. It's still Jalen Tolbert as the wide receiver too. I mean, every year I feel like we keep being like, Jalen Tolbert, I guess, Jalen Tolbert. They even lose Brandon Cooks. So right now, Jonathan Mingo is scheduled to be a starter for this team. And Jake Ferguson is what he is, but they didn't upgrade there either. I think Ferguson can be okay. I guess they keep trying to just prioritize the line, which is fine. But I mean, you can't feel super excited about Dak Prescott when they're just not doing really anything to him out.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be calling for let Dak cook. Remember that with Brian Schottenheimer and Russell Wilson? I don't think they're going to let Dak cook all that much because their number one pick was Tyler Booker, so they've really invested in the offensive line. They're trying to throw it back to when they were drafting Tyron Smith and Travis Frederick and Zach Martin and all those guys that they had to establish their strength up front, and they became a very run-heavy team. We know the DeMarco Murray era, that type of team, right? It was very conservative, a little bit with Jason Garrett, run heavy, trying to play defense. I think Jerry Jones is trying to recreate that formula a little bit that they had in the transition from Tony Romo to Dak Prescott. And they did win a lot of games doing that with the run heavy offense, but it wasn't all that exciting for our fantasy in the passing game, right? So look, CeeDee Lamb maybe considered a winner here because he's going to just dominate targets like nuts for another season here. So that's something to look at. But it's funny that they haven't really drafted a receiver. They haven't really added a receiver. Amari Cooper, their old friend, is out there. So maybe he gets in this mix, or Keenan Allen. Will take either one of those at this point. They're free agents. So come on, Jerry Jones, do this for Dak. I mean, you paid Dak a lot of money, but maybe that's the problem. You paid Dak a lot of money. You're paying other guys a lot of money. So you don't have a lot to go around to really upgrade anywhere else. So look, it is here what it is with Dak. He's not going to give you much of the running anymore. He's basically a pocket passer and what figures to be run heavier offense. So, yeah, Dak going down here. And one last guy we'll bring up at tight end, Cole Kmet. I mean, he had to be sad when he heard Colston Loveland. Like the first three letters are the same, but Colston Loveland might have more upside as a receiver than Kmet. And Kmet has been good, solid. He's done what he's needed to do, right? He's been through a bunch of offenses, different quarterbacks. He's done his best to produce when called upon, and they've even liked him to keep him, with a new deal and all that. So I think you'll see 12 personnel, but then it's confusing because you have the rookie Luther Burden in there with Rhamondre and DJ Moore. There's just not going to be enough balls to go around for Cole Kmet. The only hope we have is that Loveland kind of is brought along slowly with the injury, and he's more like, quote, on the roster and redshirted and developed more for 2026. That's our only hope. But I think when you use a first-round pick, especially a team that's trying to shoot up quickly and win quickly, I think they expect Loveland to be a contributor right away, and that's not good news for Kmet.
And it wasn't even just a first-round pick. It's a 10th overall pick. Like that is
instead of Tyler Warren. So
yeah, instead of Tyler Warren. So and it's not even just the tight end pick, right? And Colston Loveland, because like you said, then we could talk ourselves into that they'll be playing 12 personnel and Kmet will be out there. But then they take Luther Burden at the top of the second round to add a third wide receiver in the mix. The reason why Cole Kmet was on our radar to jump up, I mean, he was a tight end 25 in points per game last year after being the tight end 8 in 2023. So we're saying he could jump back into the top 12, top 10 because we thought he'd be the third target on this team behind DJ Moore and Rome Odunze. And now he might be the fifth target, right? A sixth target. So yeah, this kind of ruins it for him. He only had 55 targets last year on the entire season, only 4 games with 5+ targets. So it's not like he was being utilized before this. Now I don't picture, like we were excited with Ben Johnson. Maybe he'd use him more, but not with it being this packed in for targets. So unfortunately, Cole Kmet is.
Maybe they should trade him, and that'll work out. But that's the only way I think the value is going to be there.
Trade him to the Chargers.
Yes, that'll be good. Yes, we'll take it.
All right. Well, that will be it for today's episode. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stops. Hosts Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will be back tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Bye, y'all.